I enjoy very much contributing to the development of Singapore. I do feel, of course, part Singaporean for that. I thank them for welcoming me because I was an outsider when I came here.
Meet Ravi, who was born in India, grew up in the US, and has been living in Singapore for 22 years. He is a multimillionaire serial entrepreneur with the focus on sustainability. Ravi shared with me why he felt emotional about renouncing his US passport, the challenges Singapore might face in the future, and whether Singapore can serve as the voice of Asia in the West. I'm Max, an entrepreneur and YouTuber. Let's go.
You remember how you come up with a decision to give up your American passport and become Singaporean? What was the driver, and you remember how was it?
Well, I had lived in Singapore already quite some time. I hadn't lived in the US in a very long time. I didn't have much substance in the US. I didn't have any businesses there. So I thought, it made sense for me to get the Singaporean passport because it was my home, and it's proven correct because I think I've done more and more in Singapore, since that time, and I really haven't done anything, in the US in that time. So I think it was the right decision, in retrospect. I do have a strong affinity to Singapore. I very much like it here. I've lived here a long time. It's been home, for the family. My businesses. I like to contribute to the local society here. I teach at Yale and US. I sit on a few panels related to sustainability policy, things like that. I enjoy very much contributing to the development of Singapore, and I do feel, of course, part Singaporean for that. I thank them for welcoming me, because I was an outsider when I came here. I feel like, I'm well regarded and well integrated into the setup. So yes, I do feel somewhat Singaporean too.
So it's was more like a logical decision, no emotions involved that you give up American citizenship.
Well, to be honest, it is emotional. I didn't give up my American citizenship easily. I had been thinking about it for quite some time, for 4 or 5 years, to be honest, before I finally decided to do it. So I weighed the pros and cons, I went through the kind of emotional roller coaster. By the time I did it, I felt more clear in my mind. So in that sense, it became sort of more logical and rational that Singapore was my home. It was probably going to be my home for a long time. The US, I didn't see a path to kind of going back to the US and doing things there. It's the way, my life evolved. And I felt, therefore, it was probably the right decision.
Your identity is...
I always say my identity is just me, Ravi, to be honest, because my life has kind of happened in different phases, so even though I did all of my education in the US, and a lot of my cultural frame of reference is from the US, because you're very influenced by, where you grow up as a young kid. I moved away from the US by the time I was in my mid-20s. And other than a short period back in business school in the US, I never went back to the US. So my entire professional career really has been outside of the US. I sort of lost a little bit, of that Americanness maybe over time. I mean, maybe not the way I speak or some of my mannerisms and way of thinking. But in many other ways, I became a much more international person. And, I lived in Europe for many years, in the UK and Germany. I spent some time in South America and Brazil. And I've lived in Singapore, over 20 years now. So I've been in Asia for quite some time as well. So I would say now, I don't know really what I am. I suppose I'm just me.
I think in one of your last Facebook posts, you talk a lot about Asia in general, in terms of sustainability and the growth of Asia. And I think you mentioned that some things were kind of founded in, let's say, Western world, and they exist in terms of sustainability. They exist here and they kind of accept it in Asia. But maybe it's not the way that things will go on. Where the global trends go?
The world really is governed by the so-called rules-based order. But this is really kind of a hypocrisy in many ways, because this rules-based order was imposed very much by, the US, Europe, and it was a reflection of their political and economic dominance. And, that's what you find in a lot of the institutions that are meant to uphold economic stability, law and order, and so on, right? So, NATO, the IMF, the World Bank, the TRIPS patent system, a lot of these kinds of institutions, right, in some ways, really don't serve the interests of the wider world, and can be used to kind of use institutional means to kind of establish and maintain the dominance, that had been established in the post-World War period, and even going further back, the colonial, period, right? Yeah. So the rules-based order is not working. I think a lot of countries in Asia are beginning to recognize that. In sustainability, it's the same thing, because sustainability, in a way, suddenly became a hot topic because some people in Europe and maybe some people in the US made it a hot topic, in a way. Now, it is a very pressing issue, for sure. We know, the perils of climate change that affects all of us, and it's a global issue that needs resolution, for sure. We're managing. So it's a very real issue, but in Asia, sustainability is also viewed as another set of rules from the rules-based order that's imposed. So if you take this region, for example, Southeast Asia, Singapore, it's very much part of the global supply chain, right? Because it supplies a large part of the world with raw materials. It supplies textiles, it supplies agricultural goods, natural resources, electronics, many other things. Yeah. But now, those smaller companies in Southeast Asia may struggle to continue to supply European and US companies because of a whole set of regulations that have come out in Europe and the US governing the sustainability of their supply chain. This is again a rule, a regulation that's imposed over there that has an adverse impact here, right? There's going to be pushback against that because the rules are pretty tough, and a lot of these smaller suppliers cannot conform to the many requirements. It would mean investment in changing the factory equipment, making it more sustainable, polluting less, right? Yeah. Consuming less water. It would involve many changes to their business practices. That's an example where, and this is what I'm writing about more and more, is that Asia needs its own voice on topics like sustainability and other global topics. So the point is to kind of build a new rules-based order. You need everybody to be inclusive. And the other big issue that you may have followed in the climate space is the COP28 and COP27, the climate change discussion, where a lot of developing countries, including Asian ones, said, look, climate change is caused by you, the West, because most of the historical emissions really come from the West. So the reality is that you're responsible for the problem, not us. We only account for a few percent of global emissions. That's changing now because China and India are big emitters today, but historically, no, right? So a lot of the climate change problems we have are historical in nature, and Asian countries are saying, hey, you pay me, to clean up my environment, right? Clean up my climate. It's your problem, right? So that's the money, and who pays for sustainability is another related topic, you see?
So you mentioned that Asia has to have a voice to express what they want, their needs.
Correct.
And do you think it's like, let's say Singapore can be this place where this voice is accumulated and expressed?
I think
or
so.
Some other places?
I think so, because Singapore is a major Asian hub, and you have very diverse groups of Asians here. You also have a strong university network. You have a lot of thought leaders. You have a strong government and policy leadership, right? So the reality is, I think there are many, many opportunities for Singapore to serve as a regional voice, just because of the nature of Singapore itself. So that's what I'm trying to do, in a way, right, with sustainability. And I'm sure if you take other subjects that concern the rules-based order, right, globally, then I'm sure other people here would contribute to that.
What do you think the biggest challenges for Singapore in the coming 10, 20 years? Like, people say it should be like one of the biggest potential issues is like American-China tensions, and Singapore has, let's say, somewhere in the border. They need to keep and maintain relationships with both.
I don't know exactly how it will play out, Historically, of course, the U.S. has been a major ally, of Singapore, and I think that will continue. Right now, obviously, there's a growing gap between, the U.S. and China, and eventually that may cause, some moments of reckoning for Singapore. But I think for the moment, Singapore's policy of kind of playing it down the middle, has been rational and reasonable and is kind of working.
Yeah, being rational and reasonable, that's the trait of Singapore. I think people in Singapore, honestly, I see the comments under my videos, and Singaporeans, they're not like other audiences when they are, oh, this is bullshit, or just, oh, I love it. They're very like one-sided. Singaporeans, okay, let's see, from one side, from one standpoint is this one. So they really try to go deeper.
Yeah, I think the watchword for Singaporeans are they're very practical and pragmatic. I think that works quite well. If you're very ideological and you see everything through ideology, it can be very limiting because it limits your behavior, right? You see that in US politics, where no party is trying to improve the country. Parties are only voicing ideological slogans. And from Russia, I think you know that too, So I don't think that's a good approach to getting things done. Getting things done mean that you have to work with all kinds of people. You have to work with people from all kinds of points of view and all kinds of backgrounds. Everyone has something to contribute. And the decisions you will take are, kind of based on situations and horses for courses, sort of approach. So I think Singapore embraces that concept very well. Yeah. And I think it's what allows them to get things done. Getting things done is more important than having a prevailing ideology. It kind of becomes the ideology, right?
Yeah. What do you think the role of India these days in the coming years? When I went to India for interviews, like Indians they become very proud being Indians. And I think that's the kind of recent trend. Indians, society become more and more aware of themselves and their successes. And it's really interesting to see on such a huge scale, like more than a billion people live there,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always thought one of the nice features about India, in good times and bad, is that there's a very strong social capital. And that's really what keeps India together, And part of that is having this common ethos of being Indian, even though India is a very diverse country. There is this strong kind of embodiment of Indianness and what it means, and the social capital that comes from that. So I always thought, in a way, I've been an outsider. I'm an Indian, but an outsider Indian. I always thought that was maybe the strongest feature, of India. That applies even to people like me, who left India many years ago, right? So even the Indian diaspora has that social capital and feeling of Indianness. So it's kind of cool to see.
I actually read some article. This article said like Indians are the most successful ethnicity in the US in terms of career.
Well, people like my parents really paved the way. Because when they went there were no Indians. I remember my dad couldn't even get an insurance policy or a credit card because Indians had no health history. They had no financial history, right? But they were the guys. That generation were the ones who made the sacrifices and created the success and the groundwork, right? To allow, my generations and subsequent generations to do well. So, I mean, I was there at the beginning of that story. So I'm not surprised now that they're the wealthiest ethnic group in the US.
How you socialize and how you maintain relationship with people you have already in your life and how you make new friends.
The people I already know, a lot of these people I've known for many years. They're friends, but they're also people I've done business things with. So, there's kind of an overlap, I think, between the personal and the professional, I think, as you get older. So, but they're also great, personal friends, and we've done many things together, over the years. We may not see each other regularly. All these guys are busy. I'm busy. We have families and so on. But when we do see each other, then we make sure that we talk about the world, we talk about ourselves, we talk about our families. We have a good time. And we, if there's some business things, we do that too, right? In terms of meeting new people, I think one of the cool things is as you get older, you have a better understanding of what you are and what you're looking for. So in that sense, every year I'll meet one or two people who kind of really are special new people for me, And I really enjoy And I'm an intense person. So if I really like that person, then I want to see them regularly and get to know them better, you know? So I do that, you know? So that's kind of how I work, right? So when I meet new people, I'm not looking for quantity, you know? I'm just looking for a certain quality, you know, that I like. That's it.
I introduced this guy. He's also a super successful entrepreneur in Singapore, named Robert. So you guys can watch this video here. He mentioned like his principle in life and what also he teaches his kids. If you want to be 10, you need to hang out with 10th, not like with the quality of people. Do you agree? Or let's say, do you have friends who are not so successful in their career or in their business? Let's say they have, let's put it this way, they have much less money than you.
Yeah, I'm not judgmental like that. You know, first and foremost, I think I'm looking for people who are good people. So, you know, I'm not motivated by just hanging out with people with money. That's not interesting. So I judge them by their character and whether I think they're good people, you know. Secondly, I want to see that kind of the values and outlook in life and what they're trying to achieve kind of overlaps with mine, right? Dreams, aspirations, ideals, right? And then, of course, the business and the success and the money come into it, right? Yeah, of course, a lot of people in my network have money and they're good friends, but we don't talk about it. You know, what we talk about is more the first two things, right? We want to have fun together. We want to do good things together, have some kind of impact, some legacy, right? You know, that's what we're focused on, to be honest. We're not focused on just, you know, like accumulating people with money like that, you know. That's so, I look at the character, I look at the outlook and ambitions. And to be blunt with you also, a lot of older people, sometimes they also deteriorate. They become very successful, but then they're not doing much with their life, you know? So some people I know like that are not people I'm close to anymore. Whereas they're younger people who don't have as much, but I feel like they're hungry, they're excited, they have good values, you know? And I want to hang out with them. You need a mix. I'm a little bit more out of the box in my thinking in terms of how to build a group of friends. I also have very diverse interests. I hang out with professors, academics. They don't have money, but they have ideas. That's their currency. And I like people like that. I hang out with scientists. You know, I hang out with NGO guys. I hang out with sustainability, you know, activists. I hang out with all kinds of people. I have a whole creative scene. I love music. I love art. You know, I hang out with artists. I hang out with musicians, you know? So I'm much more omnivorous. I'm not as motivated by money and just pure business.
What's you think the most important contributors, like from your personality, like maybe from your traits, why you became successful in business? Let's say, what helped you?
Well, I think ambition, motivation, you know, you have to, I think, first have hunger. You want to be successful.
Were you hungry? Because like I imagine after investment banking, you already have some capital if you were in like top roles, and then it's already kind of good life. And then you decided, okay, I want more.
That's true, but I think the DNA of successful people is to keep being successful and more successful and different successful, you know? So for me, like I said, I don't feel like I've arrived yet. I have a lot of other things I need to do. Yeah, I was a professional in investment banking and I reached a certain level. I got bored of that, you know, I left. Then I started my own company. So I kind of started again from scratch, right? And then I've kind of made that reasonably successful. And then I kind of got bored with that and got very interested in sustainability. I don't know about you, but I'm the kind of person, if I do something well, like over a period of time, then I get bored and I want to do the next thing. So that's kind of my personality, which is more challenging because you feel like you're tearing everything down and starting again. But in a way though, what I found is everything is layered on top of everything. So your past doesn't go away. It's one part of the foundation, the layer, and then it's the next layer, the next layer. And it kind of shapes who you are as a person, you know, over time. That's kind of how I feel right now.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same with this project and this channel, because I started from scratch like a bit more than a year ago, and it's like went pretty successful, like first in Singapore, then Malaysia, then India. But I feel like all my past, I did a lot of digital marketing, I did a lot of like YouTube in Russian, I did other social media. I ran a team at some point of like 45 people, so I have all this experience. And I feel like it helped me tremendously, all of this experience, to be so fast with this channel success.
There you go, you see? In a way, even though you stop doing what you did in the past, you don't forget some of the things and learning, right? So I think to be successful, you have to learn from past mistakes and past successes. You have to always blend in different aspects of your network and experience into your new thing. You have to be motivated. You need some luck for sure. So you need all those things.
Was there anything that helped you? Or maybe you can say to your previous yourself, maybe you can give some advice to yourself.
You just have to be so damn strong, man. You know, that's it. I mean, you have to be, it starts with you. You have to be mentally very, very resilient, you know, and that's another trait of successful people. You're just so bloody minded that you're going to fight through anything, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like everything's a challenge. Nothing good comes easy. You got to fight, you know? So I don't know. I just put my mind to it and made sure, you know, I got through it somehow, just being mentally strong. I think you need also escape. You need some good friends. You need, you know, good music. You need something also to take your mind off the stress too. So, you know, you need a balance, right? You have to escape a little bit, but when it counts, you have to be in the moment and solve it, okay?
By the way, do you remember the biggest transaction in your bank account?
I don't know the exact amount, but millions, you know, have come in
like in one go.
in some one go, but I honestly don't know the exact number. Yeah.
What did you feel?
I didn't feel anything, to be honest, no. I mean, I felt happy for about 10 minutes, and then I just moved on. You know, honestly, I didn't feel much. You know, I'm not motivated by that, honestly. I feel like money is an outcome of doing things you want to do, doing it well, right? Doing it with the right people. I think I remember the journey more than the end result. You know what I mean? That's what it is. It's a journey.
Can you make money without liking your professional thing?
You can, I think, up to a point, but you won't be happy. I think you can be. I think you can talk to a lot of mid-career professionals who are very successful, you know, at a big company, at a financial firm, at a consulting firm. I don't think they're truly happy, but they're definitely financially successful. They have titles, you know, they have perks, but I don't think they're really happy. So your intelligence, your hard work, and your ability can bring you results. But I think to become yourself, to fully express yourself, to fully become successful, to become a successful human being, if I can put it that way, you have to really like what you're doing. And then that really maybe a lot of people only discover in the second half of their, you know, career or life.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know, of course. I'm sure there's some people who find a career and they just love it and they do it from day one and it's great. But it's probably in the minority. I think there are a lot of successful people who secretly aren't that happy and secretly probably want to do other things. And it's probably more than you think.
Yeah, for sure. And social media doesn't help in this
Not
regard,
at all.
In this regard. Yeah.
Not at all. Yeah, it just really, you know, kind of intensifies the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think it takes a long time to really kind of find yourself professionally and personally.
What's the meaning of life for you?
Be yourself, be authentic. Find your authentic self, be true to it. Whatever that means. You know, that's it. I'm always searching for my authentic self. Don't do things I don't want to do. Do things every day I want to do. Be with people I want to be. Be in places, you know, I want to be. It's a kind of psychological, spiritual well-being, right? That's what I seek, honestly. And I seek, you know, the intellectual challenge, the professional challenge, you know, to do that, right? That's it. That's my only advice. I think good things will come if you pursue that route. They may take time, but I think they'll come.